Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may not have prepared you for. As always, I'm AJ. Sitting across me, Jason. Jason, how you doing today?
Doing great, AJ. Excited about today's episode, but yeah, we're getting started for the summer semester of classes, so things are busy, hectic, but good. Yeah.
Yeah, when this episode comes out, it'll be kind of in the, I guess everybody will be out of school by then.
Mm-hmm.
Graduations have already taken place, so for any of the seniors graduating, congratulations. And then if you're in college and you're starting summer semester or you've already started, congratulations, you're going through summer semester.
You get no break. Good for you.
You get no break, and it becomes twice as fast. Were you a summer school taker? Like, were you a summer class taker in college?
Yeah. All except for, I think, one summer. It worked out that way. I wasn't necessarily planning on it, but opportunities came along. And I took one class at one point. I audited a class at one point. And then I did a short study abroad, 8-week study abroad during the summer. And so.
I love summer classes. And I usually took, if I was going to take summer classes, I usually took my hard classes then because it was just quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did you take, was that in your concentration or core classes or what?
Yeah. Well, both, but, especially in, financial accounting, managerial accounting, we're notorious for being pretty difficult in the School of Business.
Mm-hmm.
I took those over the summer just because I just wanted to get it over with. And there were some other harder classes, depending on what the professor was, that I just want to go ahead and get it over with. I don't want to spend 16 weeks with this person or 14 weeks with this person. I want to spend 8 and be done with it.
Sure. I never took any hard classes during the summer. They were all kind of like, just core education or just not very difficult classes, things I could just kind of sit back and breeze through without putting in that much effort.
It's interesting. There's two different strategies you can go with, and it is very dichotomous. I mean, you're going to go either one way or the other. So
yeah, a lot of our students now that we teach, I see they have such busy lives outside of school, a lot of work or family obligations. So they'll take 9 or 12 hours, usually 12 because they're trying to be full-time for financial aid purposes, but they'll take 12 credit hours for the semester. And then in order to try and graduate in 4 years to make up that difference, because to graduate in 8 semesters, you have to take average 15 to 16 hours a semester. They'll take a summer class or two. So the whole time through, that's their plan, right? A year-round thing. So, and that's a pretty good strategy as well, right? If you have to balance all those things, and that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, just don't try to take 15 hours in the summer semester. It is not going to work.
Oh, yeah. I had a student approach me before about 15 hours during the summer and also doing an internship and had a full-time job, or probably, said full-time. Lots of times I hear that from students.
Yeah.
And it's waiting tables at night, but it's, it seems like it's close to 40 hours, but it's not. That was kind of the position I was in school as well. But they try to do all those things. I'm like, you're not going to be able to do that. That's the equivalent of taking 20 to 30 hours during a regular semester. Yeah. That's horrible.
That's crazy. Well, in today's episode, we're going to go back to the College 101 series, and we're going to be talking about connecting with professors. I'm super excited about this one because this is something I was pretty passionate about. I love just kind of connecting with my professors, at least the ones that allowed me to. So I'm interested to see kind of hear what you have to say about this. How's that sound to you?
Sounds good. Before we do though, remind everybody, hit us up at Reschool'd.com. That's Reschool with a D, not an ED. Tell us what you want to hear about. Check us out on the social media profiles. Your favorite podcasting app. Give us all the stars you can give us, right? Get notifications when we drop new episodes. But most of all, reach out to us. Let us know what you want to hear about, right? Our website's the best place to do it.
Well, let's get into our quick question. Were you the type in college to make friends with your professor, or were you the type that kind of thought, I came in for education, I'm not here to make friends?
So I definitely didn't have that second mentality. But I did not make friends with all of my professors. There were a select few who I made friends with, and the rest I did not. but I never thought in any way, shape, or form that I was just there for the education and, avoided making friends with them. It's just a lot of people I didn't necessarily hit it off with, right? In terms of they do what they do, and I didn't have a lot of interest in doing what they do. So I didn't spend a lot of time talking to them outside of class or before, or even, I guess, during class sometimes. But in my major, for example, I ended up being a Spanish uh, culture and history major. And those professors, yeah, I was pretty tight with them. I would visit them outside of office hours just to talk about things not class related necessarily and stuff. See, they were so interesting. They were all foreign, usually, except for a few, right? And even the ones that were not foreign or one of a different culture themselves, they had spent significant time studying and living in and researching different cultures and stuff. And that was kind of what marked my undergraduate experience. It was just culture, diversity, just, you know, try, trying to, I was trying to be early in the metaverse, right? Because
Oh yeah,
those
there you
foreign
go.
cultures couldn't have been more foreign to me, right? It was almost like they weren't real because all I'd ever done is seen them on
Yeah.
TV or read about them. So when I meet these people from these different cultures and they can talk vividly about it, right? I'm getting long winded here, but my mentor all the way through was a Cuban exile who was part of Bautista's army. Then Castro, took over and during the overthrow there, and he left as an exile to Europe, right? And he had some amazing stories to tell about that period, and everything I'd read about it was from the U.S. point of view, the Bay of Pigs type scenario, and our support, of any regime in any country that was non-communist in nature, right? That was actually what gave me so much interest in studying in Chile, because the overthrow there was by Pinochet, right? And
Mhm.
it was, basically the opposition uh, was backed by the United States, right, against the communist government. So anyway, that being said, right, so I started seeing history play out before my eyes, and it was pretty fascinating. Yeah.
I was the one that tried. I mean, I naturally try to have fun and everything, and the more friends you have, the more fun you have, and I try to take that into the classroom too. I'm a jokester at heart. I like to joke around, have fun,
Yeah,
and
I could see you
if I
wanting
can
to
do that,
be
with
tight with pretty much all your professors.
yeah, well, and I won't say all, because I knew there were some to stay away from. I knew that there were people that, there were professors out there that just would not do well with my personality, and I wouldn't do well with theirs. And I would just went to class, as a serious student in those classes, but other classes, I knew I could joke around with the professors. I used to go to trivia night at the bars with some of my professors when I was a student, and it was fun. It just took them out of the classroom setting and made them, obviously, it just put them in a different light. I got to see them in a different light, so it wasn't this professional side in class all the time. I got to see them kind of cut loose and see what their profession was all about, what their demeanor was all about, what their personality was all about, in a true sense, in a real world sense, versus just in the classroom setting. And I loved it. And there was times where I attempted to do that and failed miserably. And then there was times that like I said, I went into class and I knew I didn't even want to try, because it was just not gonna work.
Yeah.
But if any time I could, I tried, because I saw more benefits than I did disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to lose that. I mean, even to this day, I still talk to some of my professors that I had back in undergrad, because we became friends.
Oh, wow.
So,
One thing lots of students are, surprised about when you do start talking with them outside of class type scenario, or you're around them in a social setting at all, it surprises them how much different you are outside of the
oh yeah,
classroom than you are inside the classroom. Right. I mean, the inside the classroom is just such a particular environment, right? It's a very process driven thing. You're trying to get through all the information. You've managed this 100 times. Lots of times the experience does not reflect the personality of the professor fully or at all. Right. So you meet the professor outside the classroom, and then, you might have liked them inside the classroom, and then you have nothing in common. Or excuse me, you might have liked them inside, but you have nothing in common outside, or vice versa. You really didn't like their class or didn't like the way they ran it, and then outside the classroom, you get along great. I'm always cautious with students who want to become too chummy, right, before and after class, because oftentimes it's those students who come to me and ask for favors at the end in terms of,
I didn't.
Can I make up this homework assignment? Can I turn this in late? Oh, I only need a few more points on this to get up to the next grade level. And that's, it makes you have to be the bad guy and say, sorry, the grade's the grade.
Yeah.
Right. No special exception.
And actually, we're going to come back. I want to come back to that point too when we go through these main topics, because that's a really good point. But let's go through these let's go to the main questions.
Okay.
Do you feel there's value in connecting with the professors? I think we've mentioned a little bit, but is there specific value you can think of?
Oh yeah. Well, in my experience, what I was talking about a little bit earlier, sometimes what you do outside the classroom is just as important for your learning as what you do inside the classroom. And for me, I wasn't learning, well, I guess a technical skill in learning to speak another language, but I was learning about things. It was exposure, all that kind of stuff. And interacting with my professors was a way to experience culture firsthand, right? To experience it through them, through their stories and things like that. So absolutely, there's tons of value in being connected with your professors. They tend to be highly experienced, at least in some way, in the area you are interested in. Right? They've studied a lot. They've researched a lot. They've experienced themselves and at least have an opinion on it type scenario. So if you see the college experience as a collective learning opportunity, right, then your professors being there as a point of reference, as somebody you can learn from outside the classroom, that's part of it, right? That's one of the big value propositions that you can't just get, watching videos or even in fully online classes, right? So how about you?
Yeah, I would say absolutely there's value in it. And there's different types of value that you get with it. What you were saying, looking at it from the academic side, the educational side, getting to learn perspectives from other people, that's a clear one. And especially in, again, an academic setting like in college, that's good, because you're going to get stuff that you're going to see things and hear things that you probably wouldn't hear or see in the classroom. That's probably the biggest one from the academic side. I also think that, you mentioned it, how students could try to take advantage of it. I'm not saying this from the taking advantage of it side. Like, I would never ask for something like this, but I do think there's an inherent bias when you have a professor that is, you have connected with the students, and you're looking at things. You may not grade as hard as you would otherwise, potentially. You are going to, I know from my personal experience, when I come to class, I'm more excited. I'm going to put more emphasis and more passion in it because I'm excited to be around the people that I've connected with. If every one of my students are, sitting like bumps on a log that don't say anything, don't do anything, and have no personality whatsoever, it's probably going to be a pretty boring class.
Yeah.
But if I have a class that the students and I have already connected with, and they know my personality, and they're able to play along with my personality and have fun in the classroom, man, I'm going to have so much more fun teaching that class, and they're going to get a whole lot more out of it because they're going to be able to feel my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll also say this too, like even outside of the classroom, I have one student right now that I could not tell you how many years ago I had this student in my class, and I think I had her in 2 or 3 classes. One of my most memorable students ever. And I still get texts from her, at least twice a semester just to see how I'm doing, how's my family doing. We just kind of catch up. And it's a highlight of my semester when I get a text from her.
Oh, wow.
Just because, and you're talking, probably 7-8 years ago, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And still communicating to this day. And I knew her, I had her when her son was going through high school, and now he's graduated college, And to be able to see that transition has been really, really, really cool, and have that kind of memory as I go through. If I could have a whole class of her, I would have thoroughly enjoyed it, because she was just a really good student all around. Very participative.
I'll say that a lot about our non-traditional students. They are the ones that try to, have some form of at least working professional relationship with the professor afterwards, right? Because they care so much, not just about what they're learning, but about the whole learning experience. I'm like you. I would take a whole classroom full of non-traditional students who have that outlook. It changes everything. And honestly, we do our jobs so much better when we're motivated that way, right? In every corner, we know how to go the extra mile.
It's really interesting. She saved my keister one time. And this was after she'd been out of class. She was not in my class anymore. All of the classes that she took in me, she was past my area, because I'm more of the kind of the lower intro level classes. But I remember I was leaving class one day, and it was raining, and I tried to crank my car up, and my I think it was my alternator went out. Either my alternator or my starter went out. And her and her husband, her family, they own a car shop. Oh, wow. And I called her, and I texted her. I said, "Hey, this is what's going on. How close are you to the school?" And she sent somebody over with the part and fixed my car while it was still in the parking lot for me.
Wow.
And I didn't have to get it towed anywhere. And that was a lifesaver. And I could not have thanked her more.
There are additional benefits, right, to for professors to having a great relationship with your student. Oh, yeah,
this is from both sides, absolutely. Now, we just talked about the good things. Can you think of any disadvantages with connecting with your professor? And the one that came up to my mind is what you were just saying, is if you're going to go in trying to gain that connection with the teacher, do it for the right reason. Because if you expect them to do more, expect you to give extra points or be more lenient or extensions or stuff like that, you're going into it in the wrong, with the wrong expectations, and you're going to get disappointed.
Yeah. I think there are some disadvantages at times. Number one being, oftentimes you are a different type of personality in person than your professor. Not always is your professor just an awesome person, right? They may be subject matter experts in what you're learning and may do a good job of delivering that information in class and getting you involved and taking you through that process. That's what they're there for, to shepherd you through learning something that they have a pretty solid understanding of already, right? But in terms of who they are, whether you want to be close friends with them or connected with them in that way, may not be the best for you. Oftentimes they have ideas about things that you don't want to rub off on you, right? They may have perceptions of things, right? I've seen professors who were staunch racists, sexists, right? Lots of times those types of professors get exposed in the media because they can't keep their mouth shut about their feelings and things like that, right? That may not be in line with your beliefs, interest, and things like that. And if you recognize very quickly, you will, that your professor on so many topics has a different point of view than you, and you are passionate about it, oftentimes, right, you can create some level of animosity there that doesn't need to trickle into your learning environment. Because, I'd say almost every professor I've ever met is relatively professional in terms of keeping whatever influences they have in their personal life or their attributes and things like that out of the classroom. It doesn't affect students individually, right? It doesn't affect the learning experience in any way. But you start, having coffee regularly, doing, like you said, go out to a bar or drinks at trivia or something like that with your professors and stuff like that. Lots of times personalities come out, and then, can your personality be in conflict with theirs? Sure. Right. I've honestly gotten to know some of my students outside of the classroom, And I was terribly disappointed in what I came to know about them, right? Just their overall way of living, for example, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of excessive drinking and drug use and things like that, right? I think it's, I feel bad for people who get hung up on it, but also I don't respect a whole lot the people who jump into it 100% and want to make that the main focus of their life. And then all of a sudden, these students want to be, close to me in some way outside of the classroom, right? Want to be buddy and talk to me and stuff like that outside the classroom. And then I quickly realized I don't have a whole lot of respect for them as individuals, right? Type scenario. And I don't want to create the animosity of trying to change someone, but also make it pretty well known that I'm not accepting of some things as I would be. So again, could that be a negative? Could it ultimately cause hard feelings in the classroom so it spoils the in-classroom experience or their learning experience? It could. And if, your professors, I tend to be pretty open and understanding of most people, no matter what I believe or see myself. But a lot of professors aren't, right? They might be a little more judgmental or a little more have more of an attitude about certain things. So just for that reason, you could find yourself in an awkward or non-favorable situation just as easily as a favorable one.
Yeah, it is definitely a double-edged sword because it's on one hand it could work in your benefit. You get the connection. On the other hand, they, like you said, they can see things that don't mesh with them. I've never had that situation, or I haven't at least had that conversation yet, or situation, I should say, yet. But I'm sure it potentially could happen. What are some of the best ways you can think of that would help you gain those connections, that you're the true connections that we're looking for, not the we're talking about the good connections, the beneficial connections?
Well, as long as you keep your focus, I would say, on career development, right, on professional development, and you recognize your connection with the professor, they have a fiduciary responsibility to you, right, to look
That's
after.
a legal word, ain't it?
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is. It's a trust-based, right? They have a trust-based relationship with you that isn't supposed to go outside of the confines of what the school defines it as, right? Certainly not an amorous relationship. There should not be a financial relationship. No, you should not loan money to your students, right?
No, don't do that.
Things like that, right? Those types of things are prohibited for a reason. So the best way I would say to make certain that the relationship you have with your professor is positive, and stays within the restrictions or confines of what that relation is allowed to be by the academic institution, is to focus just on, look, we're connected for this purpose. This is what you teach is my interest point. I want to learn more about that. I want to have more insight into a career path or field, how I can use this in the future. Maybe your points of view on these things. But when you start going outside of the confines of why you have that relationship with that other professor or with that professor, then, is risky ground, right? It could be positive, but it could also be negative. So those are the things I would avoid, right? Try to keep your relationship professional in nature, oriented around the subject matter area you want to learn about, because professors are smart in a way that they have a lot of subject matter knowledge in whatever they research and teach, right? But when it comes to other things, lots of times it's just their opinion, right?
Yeah.
It is no more valid than yours, right? And so anyway, that those are the don'ts for me. What about you? What are some don'ts for you?
Well, some do's right now, and then I'll get to the don'ts, is you need to be situationally aware. You need to understand, you need to kind of read the room. And I think it's safe to say most professors, when they get in the classroom, they tend to bring, if not all, at least some portion of their personality into the room. Like, I'm a jokester at heart, so I like to crack jokes in class. I like to have fun in class. I like to cut up and laugh in class. If you're not that type of person naturally, then you're probably not going to do that in class, and vice versa. And so you can tell a lot about the professor, most of the time, you can tell a lot about the professor's personality inside the classroom. And if that's something that is close to your personality, if that is your personality, then the best thing I tell you to do is just to be yourself. Don't try to be something you're not. So if you're not the jokester, if you're not that type of person, don't try to become that person to connect. That would be my don't. Mm-hmm. But if you are that type of person and you're naturally that type of person, then be yourself, because that's going to come across as more genuine anyway. And it's just going to become more natural. Like when I said I went to the bars with my professor, it wasn't like I was like, went up to him after class and was like, hey, you want to go to the bar? It was just, one, I was in a small town, so there wasn't a whole lot to do, and they had trivia night at each, every whatever night of the week. And I went there and I saw them, and I thought, oh, cool. And then they asked me eventually to be on their team, and that just kind of became a weekly thing. But it wasn't like I just jumped out there and said, hey, you want to go do this? It just was kind of, it worked its way in a sense. And it was just because of my natural personality that we all kind of meshed together. I do that, like I said, now as a professor, and I also do that now in my program that I'm a student in, because honestly, I don't know any other way to do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, just I am who I am. I've had, 30-ish years of experience with my personality. And so the best thing I can tell you to do is just be yourself and let things happen naturally. Don't force it. Don't, those are the ones that's going to last, longer and be more meaningful. And then also, like I said, you're not going in there thinking that I'm going to get something out of this outside of just a connection. It's not like I'm going to get extra points. Don't do that. And don't look at it as being complacent. I fell into that trap one semester. I remember this very vividly. When I was in chemistry, I was taking chemistry as my major, and I was taking OChem. And it was the first time I had this semester, or this professor, and we got along great. Her personality matched my personality. We had very common interests, and pretty much every class that I came to, we talked about it. She was into football and fantasy football. I was too, so we talked about it back and forth, and that was kind of our connecting point. And it was really cool to have that in a professor. But when class started, it was all about class, and that was fine. I didn't say anything in class. But I took that connection that I had with her and became complacent, thinking that I was going to kind of, if I got in trouble, I would get off a lot less, with a lot less punishment or whatever it was. The repercussions weren't going to be as severe because I thought I was friends with her. And looking back, obviously I was taking advantage of what I saw in the friendship, and it was wrong of me. But kudos to her, she didn't let that happen. And I learned like I said, the hard way, that you can't do that. You can't be complacent. Like I pretty much, I didn't go to class near as much as I needed to. And what happened? Well, I had to take her again the next semester because she taught both sections, section 1 and section 2. And when I took the second semester, she implemented an attendance policy that was not there before. And I thought, what the heck? And she's like, well, it's because you didn't come to class all the time, and I needed to implement one. I thought, crap. And that was definitely something, it was an eye-opener that I thought, I was looking at this, I was an immature college student that didn't know. I've always been told I have a lot of charisma. And I can, the way I talk to people, I'm very comfortable talking to people. I have a lot of charm. I don't know if that's true, but we'll go with it. But I always kind of
people have been lying to you
to
your entire life.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. And apparently I'm very gullible too. No, but I took that as an asset that I tried to use for the wrong reasons. And I learned very quickly in college that is not the way to do it. And so that would be my biggest definite don't do that, is when you're going to, don't look at it as you're going to get something out of it. Just, go with it and take it as, don't treat the professor any different in class as you would if you didn't have a connection with them. Don't expect any new things. Don't expect any perks. Don't expect any benefits, because that could ruin your connection. That could ruin the way you look at them.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So that would be my do's and don'ts.
Yeah. I've had similar experiences before. Not so much that I ever disappointed the professor. If anything, I was very annoying, right? Because I have my calculus professor first year. I went to his office every single day after class and made him work.
That driving me bat crap crazy.
He had to work problems with me for another hour after class.
I'd have given you extra credit just to leave
every day. But he enjoyed it. He was fine with it. He liked that I wanted to do more problems, right? That I wanted to keep working through it and stuff. Other professors did not take to that very kindly. They're like, get away from me, right? I'm trying to go home. I've taught my class. Leave me alone. Yeah. These are not my office hours. Go, right? Type scenario. So I really appreciate when students want to, after class, talk through the material and stuff like that. I don't like getting off on side tangents. I just want to talk about, right? If you want to talk about the material, fine, we'll do that all day long. But if you want to talk about other, the sports games or whatever, I've got better things to do, right? I'm busy.
See, I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
My students can catch me and keep me if they talk about sports or some other things versus the topic of the class.
Well, see, that's what they think, right? Lots of the charismatic students think that. They think they're going to bring me in by talking about these things. I'm like, nope, you got like 2 minutes to talk about that and we're done. Like, now, if you want to ask me about...
I'll fall for a hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. But I've sat there for hours talking about legal issues with students, type scenarios. So anyway, like I say, every professor's different, every student's different type scenario. Do build positive professional relationships. Don't think that the relationship is some way going to affect the standard to which you're held in the classroom. Because I've had some really cool, nice students who wanted to chit chat and just generally likable that I gave really poor grades to, and with no preference whatsoever. Right? I can truly say that I do not give preference in grading. Right? So
yeah, I don't either. I don't even. So do you do the whole when you grade papers? Yours is more multiple choice, isn't it?
Well, the intro, like legal class, it's mostly that type of thing. You're just identifying the concept and matching it up. So it's a lot of that. For my other classes, the upper level classes, it's everything short answer. There's no multiple choice at all, or it's writing, like the negotiations courses are nothing but write up analyses, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, because one of my classes, I give more problems-based exams where they have to fill something out where you can get, partial credit and stuff like that. But I detach the first page, or I make the first page to where I can flip it over, and I have no idea in every test that I grade. I have no idea whose test I'm grading at the time.
Yeah,
I don't know until the very end because that keeps the bias out of it. So it's been a great episode. This is probably one of the things that I'm the most passionate about. Is I love to make those connections with my students. The ones that are, like I said, the more natural ones. So I was really interested to do this episode. But before we head out, you got any parting words to say?
Just remind everybody to hit us up on the website, and if you want to hear us talk about something, odds are we are willing to talk about it. So with that being said,
that is very true.
Yeah, our website's the place to do it. And once again, those social media handles, and like I say, all the stars on the favorite app platform, because we need those.
Well, awesome. Well, until next time, we hope to see you there. Goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.